I still remember the morning it really hit me. I woke up, reached for my phone to check the time, and the numbers were blurry. Not just slightly out of focus, genuinely blurry, like someone had smeared a thin coat of fog across my eyes. I blinked a few times, rubbed them gently, and waited. Slowly, things came back into focus. I told myself it was nothing, just tiredness, just age. But it kept happening. Every morning, that same foggy window between sleep and clarity. And then it started showing up at other times too. At night, trying to read the menu at a restaurant. In the car, struggling to make out street signs just a little sooner than I used to. At home, holding a book further and further away just to make the letters stop swimming. If you're over 60 and any of this sounds familiar, I want you to stay with me, because what I discovered changed the way I think about my eyes entirely. And it started with a question I never thought to ask. What happens to your eyes while you sleep? For most of my life, I assumed my eyes simply rested at night. Closed, dark, quiet. Recovering passively the way a tired muscle recovers after a long day. I assumed the damage from screens, sunlight, and strain just faded on its own. I had no reason to think otherwise. Then a friend recommended I look into the work of Dr. Ethan Walker, a specialist in ocular health who has spent years studying how lifestyle habits, particularly nutritional ones, influence the long-term health of the eye. I came across one of his talks almost by accident, and I remember sitting forward in my chair as he said something that stopped me completely. He said the eyes are not resting at night. Not really. According to Dr. Walker, the retina, that thin, extraordinary layer at the back of your eye responsible for capturing light and sending signals to your brain, is one of the most metabolically active tissues in the entire human body. Even during sleep, it continues working. It uses this quiet window not to rest but to repair, to clear out accumulated waste, to replenish the cellular machinery that makes vision possible. The darkness of sleep, he explained, is actually when your eyes do some of their most important biological housework. I sat with that for a moment. The eyes repair themselves during sleep. And then came the follow-up thought that I suspect you're already having too. What if mine aren't doing that well enough? Dr. Walker pointed to something called oxidative stress, a process where unstable molecules called free radicals accumulate in the tissues of the eye and cause damage over time. The retina, because of its constant exposure to light and its incredibly high metabolic rate, is especially vulnerable. As we age, our body's natural defenses against this process begin to weaken. The antioxidant systems that once neutralized those free radicals don't work quite as efficiently, and the result, slowly and quietly, is accelerated wear on the very tissue that makes sight possible. This, he explained, is one of the reasons why so many people over 60 begin to notice changes in their vision, blurriness that wasn't there before, sensitivity to bright lights, difficulty adjusting from dark to light environments, eyes that feel tired even after a full night of sleep. These aren't just the inevitable signs of getting older. They're often signals that the eye's repair process is being compromised. And the question worth asking is, what can we do to support it? That's when the conversation shifted in a direction I genuinely didn't expect. Dr. Walker began talking about nutrition, specifically about the timing of what we eat and how it intersects with the body's overnight repair cycles. He made an observation that seemed almost too simple at first. He said that the nutrients your body has available in those hours just before and during sleep are the same nutrients your tissues use to carry out cellular repair. If those nutrients are present, the process works better. If they're missing, the process is limited. And one category of nutrient kept coming up in his explanations: antioxidants. Specifically, a group of compounds called anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants found in deeply pigmented fruits. And the fruit he returned to again and again, citing multiple studies focused on retinal health and visual function, was blueberries. I'll be honest with you, when he first said it, I almost dismissed it. Blueberries? It sounded like something from a health magazine headline, the kind of oversimplified advice you've heard a dozen times. But Dr. Walker was careful. He wasn't claiming blueberries cure anything. He wasn't selling a miracle. He was explaining the mechanism, why these particular compounds, consumed in the hours before sleep, may give the eye's overnight repair process something meaningful to work with. Anthocyanins, he explained, have been studied for their ability to neutralize the specific types of free radicals that accumulate in retinal tissue. They also appear to support microcirculation in the eye, the tiny blood vessels that deliver oxygen and nutrients to cells that are otherwise difficult to reach. And when consumed in the evening, they're available in the bloodstream during precisely the window when the retina is most actively engaged in recovery. He was clear that this isn't a replacement for regular eye exams, and it certainly isn't a substitute for medical treatment if something serious is happening. But as a daily habit, something small, consistent, and genuinely supportive of what the body is already trying to do, a small handful of blueberries before bed is one of the most evidence-adjacent things a person over 60 can do for their eyes. I started doing it. Nothing dramatic. Just a small bowl, maybe an hour before sleep. And I want to be careful here not to oversell my own experience, because individual results vary, and I'm not a doctor. But I can tell you that something shifted over the weeks that followed. The foggy mornings became less frequent. The eye fatigue that used to follow me into the afternoon started to ease, whether that's the blueberries, a placebo, or just better attention to my overall health during that period. I can't say with certainty, but I kept the habit because Dr. Walker's explanation made enough sense to me that I didn't want to stop. What I took away from all of this wasn't just a food recommendation. It was a shift in perspective. I had spent years treating my vision as something that was simply happening to me, declining slowly, inevitably, beyond my influence. What Dr. Walker helped me understand is that the eyes are living tissue, constantly in conversation with everything we put in our bodies. The choices we make, even small ones, even the ones we make at the end of the day when we're tired and not thinking about nutrition, still matter. The body doesn't stop keeping score at bedtime. For those who want to better understand how to improve vision, reduce blurry sight, and discover habits that help protect eye health over time, we left a complete guide in the first link in the description. It expands naturally on everything we are discussing here. I want to ask you something before we go any further. Have you noticed changes in your vision in the last year or two? Maybe it's harder to read in dim light. Maybe your eyes feel strained by mid-afternoon. Maybe you've started relying on your glasses more than you used to. Or you've noticed that your vision takes longer to adjust when you move from a bright space into a darker one. If any of that resonates, I'd really love for you to write it in the comments. Not because I have all the answers, but because this conversation matters, and knowing that others are navigating the same thing makes it easier to keep asking the right questions. The fear of losing vision is one that many people over 60 carry quietly. The worry that one day you won't be able to drive yourself to appointments, read to your grandchildren, or recognize faces across a room. It's not a small fear, and it deserves more than resignation. If you want to learn practical ways to maintain good vision, avoid cataracts, and discover which vitamins help support your eye health, we placed a simple guide in the first link in the description that summarizes everything in a clear and practical way. What Dr. Walker gave me, more than any single food recommendation, was the understanding that caring for your vision isn't something that only happens in a doctor's office. It happens in the small, daily choices, in what you reach for before bed, and whether you think of your eyes as something to protect rather than something to simply cope with as they change. You don't have to accept blurry mornings as the new normal. You don't have to assume that tired, strained eyes are simply the price of getting older. There are things within your control, small, consistent, unglamorous things that may make a real difference over time. And sometimes, that thing is as simple as a handful of blueberries. If this conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll subscribe so we can keep exploring these kinds of discoveries together. There's so much more to talk about, and your eyes are worth every bit of the attention.